Right. Hey, Scott, thanks for joining us today. As well, you're getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I've been in the supply chain industry for really the last 30 years. Started out as a technical guy, actually computer science and engineering as a programmer, I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and worked as a sales engineer for a number of years, and I saw the sales guys in these suits driving these cars, having all this fun, making all this money.
You're doing all the work.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I'm like, I need to be doing
Yeah, I'm on the
that.
wrong side of this equation.
Seriously, right? So, took the leap to work in sales and got a real education in the mid '90s, to just hardcore selling printers and multi-function copier machines like the hard. I think I jumped into some of the hardest stuff you could possibly do, and then have been an enterprise sales rep for part of that, as well as a sales leader for a few years. And then I owned a software company at one point as well. And
Wow.
I took those programming skills, put them to use, and I wrote the basics of a warehouse management software system, right, in the supply chain industry. And we went out and sold the thing to like 3 or 4 clients, and then actually had to make the thing work, right? So we hired a real programmer to make it work, and built a business off of that, and sold that company back in 2007, 2008. Wasn't the best time to be selling a business, so we kind of broke even. And then I went back to work really for the last 15 years as an enterprise software sales rep, right? Selling to large companies, selling warehouse management and software systems. And then most recently, just had a big change in my career, and took a role of vice president of sales and marketing at the company that I work at now, Pacific Barcode. So I got a team of about 11 people that report up to me now. And so it's a different transition, right?
Well, my career is similar.
Yeah.
I started engineer, pre-sales, sales. What was your motive? It sounded like it was economic.
Actually, I always knew, I don't know where this came from. Maybe my dad was a big influence on my life. Very, very positive cheerleader for me my entire life. But I always actually, from a very young age, from like 7th grade, I always knew that I wanted to get a technical background, but work in sales,
Yeah,
right?
smart.
And having that technical background would basically make me a very complete salesperson, right? So that I could walk the walk, talk the talk, without having somebody there to hold my hand. That decision has made a massive difference in my career.
Because a lot of technical people have a real hard time in that
Yeah.
transition. That they like the economics of it, but
Yeah.
they don't like the pressure. They don't like being treated like
Yeah.
a fix-it man, right?
No, not at all. Actually, I knew that was going to be part of it. But I approached the sales equation sort of like I would the programming equation, right?
Smart.
And I literally went through and read every single sales book. At the time, it was Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar, all those guys, all the classics. And I literally studied and read and studied and tweaked and adjusted, and I've continued that through most of my career.
Well, software development and software engineering, because it sounds like you were in the 90s, that's when software engineering came out.
Yeah.
Object orientedness, reusability, component-based development. That's pattern matching.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
taking how people are doing the same thing 5 different ways, and how do you make it generic?
Yeah. No, that's
That's
exactly right.
sales process, right?
It is,
Isn't it?
right. Yeah, that's an interesting. I think that's an interesting connection. That's a very interesting connection because
Well,
I
too
think like
many
you, yeah,
classic salespeople, they look at each sales call, each deal as this unique snowflake that's never
right.
presented itself to Earth before.
Yes.
But come on, people have the
Yes.
same motives, similar problems, similar process, similar
Right.
concerns. And a smart
Yeah.
salesperson matches this.
Yeah. Yes,
Did you
yes,
do that, I
100%.
assume?
That's such an interesting, I never made that connection before. That's a really interesting, yeah, observation and insight, because it is true. That's something that, at least for me, and I know you have too, is I've had a massive focus on sales process so that I can build scalability and repeatability for my own sales cycles when I was an enterprise sales rep. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think too many people look at it, because there is an art to it, a big art element,
yeah.
but it's not 100% art. There is a lot of similarities between these deals and what's going on.
Yes, yes, yeah, couldn't agree more.
Did that become your superpower as a salesperson?
Yeah, it did. Absolutely. There was a point. There was a point back in, I want to say it was like 2013 or 2014, and it was a real pivotal moment for me. I had been a couple years at a WMS, warehouse management system software company, and I was doing okay. But I was that guy that was like 95, 98%, right? 90%. I was just knocking on the door to greatness, and I just couldn't figure out how can I get myself to that next level. Um, and in 1 year, I got beat. I mean, I took a beat down hard, right? I had a couple deals that I was absolutely convinced that I had them in the bag, gonna close them, talking to sales leadership. This is 95% done. And I was the first guy out of each one of those deals. I was so deluded in lying to myself on where I really was in that process, that it made me, for 6 months, I was so shaken by that experience because I was so sure that I had those deals. So I literally took 6 months and went back and retooled and revamped my process, so that I could really clearly follow and understand where I fell down. But I also learned that, um, part of winning these enterprise level deals and becoming successful at it means that you have to very clearly got to do a few things. One is I've got to very clearly line up, I've got to lead my customers through the buying process, because they just don't know, right? They don't know, right? They think they know, they really don't know. And the other thing too is when you're competing at a high level, the competition is fierce, and you literally have to outwork the competition. I mean, you have to go, if they're going 3 steps, you have to go 5. If they're going 7 steps, you've got to go 10. And it just requires that of you. And that, once I made that connection, it was lights out.
And did you make any judgment mistakes? Did you view it as like you weren't the golf course type salesperson? Because a lot of us who come from a technical background, we don't have the schmooze gene.
Yeah, yeah. What it was. I think I got the schmooze part of it,
You
but
do? Good.
what I didn't have though was the true business part of it,
Okay.
and that was the ability to not be afraid to ask hard financial questions or ask hard questions when presented. I was too busy trying to look good, right? And I let my ego was riding way too high, and I wasn't humble enough to ask the actual real questions, you know.
Because that's it. Because a lot, when a sales rep and a customer come together, they both have a view of the world, a frame.
Yeah, yeah,
And one person becomes submissive to the other person's frame.
yes,
And almost
yes.
always it's a salesperson. And when that happens, what do? They buy the least amount possible, as slow as possible.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's absolutely right. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
But tell me about the business part that you needed to hone and polish.
Yeah. So for me, that was really, it was about seeing myself as equal business stature, right, to those that I was doing business with. When it came to the technical people, of course, right. When I was dealing with IT, man, I was up here,
Yeah, you're in
but
your
but
zone.
absolutely, I knew what I was talking about. But when I was working with, COOs or CEOs, or senior vice presidents of operations, I was definitely operating at this level. and I was not leading. I was absolutely submitting to their will instead of pushing back or challenging them on some of their preconceived notions. I was too afraid, and I let fear drive me that I was going to mess up the deal. But what was funny was when I realized that as part of that retooling is that I had to either fake it for a little while, or I just had to get more aggressive at it and change the way that I was showing up in the relationship, right? I was showing up just timid, and I was showing up submissive. And when I started to assert myself, it's incredible how that dynamic changed completely, right? Because I actually, the funny part was it completely flipped, is that I would put my hand up and we'd stop, and I would challenge them, and they would appreciate the challenge. And I didn't realize that that was a thing, right? Yeah,
because you're getting them to look at it differently.
correct.
Because I bet
Correct.
they were looking at what you were selling as an expense, a cost.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Not an investment, not a critical piece of their business.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No, Brian, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah. And it took some time for me. I had to believe that too. It took some
Of
time for me to
course.
believe it before I could actually sell it. So
Yeah, there's a lot of reps go, oh, it's just cost. Can I get give them 5 more points?
right.
And
Yes.
that's the begging. That's the, oh, it's just an expense.
Yep. Yep.
Instead of what can this product do for their business? Now you got it technically what it can do for them. And the technical people were lighting up, and Scott's a genius. Thanks for coming in. You're showing this. Great. And then COOs doesn't understand what the product really does, doesn't care.
Right.
It's what it does for them.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And after you made this change, what happened to your career?
Oh yeah, no, it took off. It absolutely took off. It's not. I started smashing it. I was 120, 130% a year, right? So actually started just crushing it. And then closing bigger and bigger and bigger, and larger enterprise deals that were with multiple countries across, bigger, yeah, just bigger and bigger deals. Get to that point where you're starting to earn that life-changing amount of money that we're all after, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it felt good too, didn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. Oh, without a doubt.
And it kind of becomes the cheat code when you're selling enterprise deals.
It does.
Because everybody
Yes.
thinks it's about hounding or being the most charming or having the greatest insight. No, it's really being able to get the economic people on your side.
That was one of the big changes and the big shifts that I made in my own personal process, was where, selling warehouse management and a lot of software systems require some level of return on investment, at least a conversation, right? There's always, obviously, every sales situation is a little different. But one of the things that I moved, so I created basically as a 7-step process, right? I knew that there were exactly 7 steps in pretty much every single one of my deals. And one of those steps was the financial analysis part of this. And what I realized was in a lot of my deals that I had a lot of deals that would go to no decision, right? We really weren't competing against competition. It was more, there was no decision. And I had to analyze and think, why are these things going to no decision? Part of the problem was we never got to the return on investment side of it where we could put the dollars to it. So I actually moved that to the very front of the cycle, right after a discovery call, right after we discovered what the pain points. The next step was to actually insert a step for building the business case. And one of the interesting things that I learned, 9 times out of 10, customers had no idea how to build a business case.
They don't care. They've never done it before.
They've never done it before, right? So in that step, I built a business analysis or a business case workshop where I would get them part of those steps where I would set the expectation. I actually created some videos, pre-framing them before they got into this workshop about the things that they could think of, and I would send them these videos. And then we would literally get to work and roll up the sleeves together and build this business case. And then before we moved on, we created a document that had the executive summary that they would take to whoever was the person that had the financial authority to say yes on this project. we would explain the big things that the executives want to know, right? What problem are we trying to solve? What's it costing us now? What's it going to cost us to solve it, right? And then what's the payback going to be going forward? And before I even did a demo, I would require them to go through that process. It was simply a non-negotiable. I would
Really?
not do a demo with them until we got to that point. And that moved my close rate from 30, 40% to 70, 80%. Massive difference in close rate.
And in step one, who are you talking to? What was the persona title?
Yeah. So a lot of times we were dealing with typically because the person that owned the problem was usually in the operation side for me. So
Okay,
that
so
was
they're a business person.
absolutely, yeah. So it's usually
Okay.
like a vice president of operations, a director of manufacturing, usually VP or director level in either manufacturing or operations.
So they understood the value of a business case, but probably hadn't built one before.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Now, in that sale, I agree that makes sense. Have you sold things where it requires you to do that later in the process, or well, step one,
Yeah.
a lot of people I sold to never cared about what the
Right.
ROI, but the people who pay do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can't do it at the beginning because you're
Right.
boring them. It's like showing the product to the end people, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
don't care what it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, so what, in the company that I'm working at now, yes. So that is, it has actually shifted to the middle, right?
Yeah.
It's middle endish with what we're doing today. That was, when selling at least the enterprise level warehouse management systems was such a long sales process. The cycle was minute. I mean, the lightning speed it ever moved where it was maybe 2 to 3 months, right? But
Yeah.
then there were some cycles that were a year, 2 years, 3 years. Um, so I had to, as a salesperson, I had to decide where am I going to spend my time. I just got a finite amount of time. And if they weren't willing to move through on that process, I would literally eject out of the sales cycle and say, when you're ready to do this, let's talk,
Yeah.
you know,
And what were they using before you showed up? Was it in-house built or paper or
paper.
competitor?
Yeah, but
Paper.
not most of the time, 90% of the time, it was nothing. It was just
Nothing.
pen and paper and manual business processes.
That's
Yeah,
smart. Yeah, because you
yeah,
could go 6, 9 months and then they decide, well, paper's
yeah.
still working.
Not broke, don't fix it. Yeah, the easy thing to do is to hire more people, which is what most people would default to, or most
Yeah.
organizations would default to. Yeah.
Now, did you get pushback from your management about this, or were they visible
No,
to it?
this was actually a problem that we tried to solve corporate wide. And so I was kind of the guinea pig for it because we were doing a great job of identifying and generating leads, but there was a real gap on the no decisions,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
especially when they've got something that's working, it's an established business, it's
right.
not a startup,
Yeah, correct.
lots of change.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Correct. Correct. So yeah, no, it was interesting to watch just the sort of the Lego pieces of you move them around a little bit and what impact that has. We were just talking about sales process, right? And what positive impact that can have in getting a deal moving forward. So, and it it's funny because it tied back to that thought leadership piece that we talked about earlier, right? So when I switched the conversation to this business conversation and we're talking about return on investment, my feeling of being in control and my feeling of leadership rose exponentially because these VPs of ops, instead of now me being submissive to their process, I'm now leading that process and I was a lot more confident, which added to my ability to close these things.
Yeah, and they don't view you as a rep. They
Correct.
view you as somebody who really gets it and is kind of leading them, showing
That's
them a smarter way of doing it, smarter way that other people do it.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So yeah, so in the role that I'm in now, what I'm trying to do is working to teach teach. Now I'm on the coaching side of that and teaching my team how to work how to follow that same process. So it's kind of fun.
It's a little hard too, isn't it? It's a different way of viewing it.
Yes, it is.
You're laughing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Right,
is.
because I think most reps grow up in you know, present, demo, propose, negotiate, close, or and maybe a
Right.
POC in there somewhere.
Correct.
It's a
Yeah.
lot of reactive, and the only proactive thing is the checking in.
Yeah.
As opposed to guiding them.
Yes. 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 No, part of the, yeah. Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. I think one of the things that at least in this role, so I've got this process that I created. Um, there's a piece of it because the checking in thing is a real problem too, right? And that's something that is just, there's no value in checking in, right, whatsoever, right? So but it's so, like, it's just so ingrained in our sales DNA to check in, right? Yeah, it's a nuisance. It's funny because I'm getting it now from now that I'm
I'm
working
on
in
the
the
other
leadership role.
side. People are
I'm
telling
getting it
you.
from, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. As I'm buying, sales tools and investing in software solutions for us to be better, I'm on the other end of it, right? And I'm getting salespeople checking in, and I have to resist the urge to come back and say and coach them as much as I want to. um, but one of the things that another thing that made a difference in my sales cycle was I worked with our marketing team, and I'm doing this now with my team, is that we built a series of marketing assets, right? So they can be deployed at every stage inside of those cycles. So from stage 1 to stage 2, there's this arsenal of marketing assets that adds value to the customer's day. Blog articles, white papers, case studies, insight stories, whatever they are, right? And then from phase 2 to 3, an arsenal of assets. And so what I did, and what I'm encouraging and teaching my team to do, is to use those so instead of checking in, you send them the asset. Wanted to add some value to your day, thought you might find this interesting. And so that really, I had a deal. I was about 6 years into I was at the last company for 8 years. About 6 years into it, I closed one of the biggest deals I'd ever closed. And I got to the end of the cycle, and I was like 3 weeks up until the end of the close for the deal. And I think we were 50-50 with the other competition, right? And we got to the end of the deal, and I asked I got the call after doing the fist pumps and the jumping up and down, being super excited for the deal. Took a breath and asked my contact. I said, "What made the difference?" He's like, "Scott, there were 2 articles that you sent us, and they connected with us, they landed with us, and they resonated. And it proved to us that you could handle this project on a global level." And that's what tipped the scales. And it's just, we were 50-50 the whole way. And it were these 2 marketing assets that I thought would resonate. And it just blew me away that just something that simple would tip the scales.
Because you have to bring something to the table each time.
Yeah.
Don't show up empty-handed.
Right.
And content's one thing, topics, issues, what other people are doing. And a lot of reps don't know how to talk to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're great. Oh, can I help you extend the eval, get your new proposal?
Yeah.
You want to have lunch?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
That's their arsenal of ideas.
It is.
Instead of, like, what you're doing is like, what are they concerned about at stage 1?
Right.
What are they thinking about?
Yeah.
What are they thinking about at stage 2? They want to see social proof. They want all these little things, but don't send it all at once.
Yes.
Because reps, I'm effective, I'm efficient. We just had the meeting. I sent them 18 pieces.
Yeah. No, that's right, man. Outlook delayed delivery is your friend, right? You can use that.
Delay and a lot of things is your friend, isn't it?
Anyway, yeah. Reschedule that stuff. Yeah.
And how have you found leading? Because that's a whole nother world, right?
So I have done it before in a previous company, but this is at a different level. So it's awesome. I think if for me, it's a calling, right? It's absolutely a calling, right? So it's something I've always wanted to do. I've just, up until this last year, I never quite felt ready for it. And I needed to earn my place, to pay the price for admission, to have actually been successful at the role, like highly successful, in order for me to feel like I could then turn around and coach and lead. So it's what's been interesting about this is I've observed a couple different leadership skills To me, I break it down kind of like this. I think on one end of the spectrum, you have the coaches, right? They're 100% coach. And
Yeah.
on the other end of the spectrum, you have the master and commander, right? So when a sales rep comes to you, if you're the master and commander, you tell them what to go do exactly, because they're always looking to be told what to do, right? And the other end of the spectrum, there's the coach, right? And there's a little bit what I've learned is that the to me, what's most effective is being somewhere a little bit in the middle, right? And so like when I started this role, there was more of a commander
Yeah.
culture, right? And it's fine. It is what it was, and it's because the leadership here and the ownership here just didn't have the time, just because the coaching part requires an investment of time, um, right? Because when a sales rep comes and asks me for a question, my response back to them is not an answer; it's a question, in order to teach them to think for themselves, to start to ask instead of commanding. And so that's been my number one challenge has been to stop myself from giving an answer. Even if I know the answer, right? My job is to
Right.
coach, you know.
Because the commander, if they do what you say and it doesn't work, who do they blame?
Yeah, that's very true. Yes.
So you not only have they
Absolutely.
not learned, they now don't think
Yeah.
you know what you're doing.
Yeah. 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 No, that's absolutely right. It's absolutely right.
And I think
That's
today
absolutely right.
there's too many tools and people are dependent on them, thinking that, oh, do I need to enter another thing into phase 3 to hit the button on day 17,
Right.
as opposed
Yeah.
to a little empathy. Like, what did you hear last
Yes.
time? What do you think's going on? What are you
Yes.
scared of?
Right. That's right. Absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Yeah. 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 So,
And what do you like about coaching and leading now?
oh, well, I mean, listen, there's a pretty amazing satisfaction when you have such a positive influence on someone else's life, right? If I've achieved, I've achieved a great deal in the short period of time that I've been working, and to come in and help others achieve that level of success it's just very satisfying, right? It's very what's the saying that a rising tide buoys all boats, right? So having an impact, I don't know. To me, the sales team has sort of a fiduciary responsibility to the organization, right? I look at us and our jobs as almost like we provide the work that we do provides jobs, right? Like nothing happens until you sell. How many times we said nothing happens until you sell something, right? And so there's people in this building that I'm responsible for as the vice president of sales and my sales team. And so, but there's an honor to me that comes with that. I'm honored that I get to do this, and so that's what I love about it, is I literally get to do that. I get to wake up and do this every day, and have influence and lead these people in a positive direction, so they've got a great life. So
And if you were to meet, let's say somebody not in your company, to detach from what you're doing today, if a rep came to you and they were performing at a B level,
yeah.
how would you help them get to the A level?
You just described the last year.
Can you break it down into a 2-minute answer?
Yeah, I'm gonna try, man. I'm gonna try. It really comes down to it comes down to the master and commander philosophy. What I found is a lot of the B players want to be told what to do instead of
Yeah.
learning how to think for themselves, right? And so the coaching to teach them how to think for themselves, and then once they can do that, then layer in a scalable business process that they can follow. Then start measuring them by that business process. And once you do that, then it's lights out. I'm right now. I'm there. This team is really starting to kick and really starting to take off because of that.
And how long did that take?
A little less than a year. A
Yeah,
little less
so
than a year.
sounds like a lot,
Yeah,
but it's not a lot of time.
it's really not. It goes by so fast. Yeah,
Yeah,
incredibly fast.
cool. Hey, Scott, I really enjoyed this conversation. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
I'm just LinkedIn. Scott McKenzie. Yeah, with the Pacific barcode. That's the number one place. Yeah, me too, Brian. Really enjoyed this. Thank you. Thank you for doing this. Like I said, I've been watching you for a while, and I've embraced a lot of what you've had to say. So this was a thrill and an honor for me too.